Craig, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming by. What are the opportunities that you're seeing, that you're hearing people here talk about regarding artificial intelligence and machine learning inside DoD national security community?
Well, Francis, first, thanks for having me today. In a lot of ways, we view software and AI as the sail to steam moment for the Navy. If you look at the 1700s, the steam engine was invented, but it took a long time for the Navy to actually adopt that technology for multitudes of reasons. They didn't think it was reliable. They were trained on sail for a long time, just resistant to change. Now, in the late 1800s, the Navy actually fully adopted the steam engine and became the best Navy in the world. And so there was this battle of Santiago de Cuba where the Navy just annihilated the Spanish fleet. We see right now this shift where we have to start thinking of the Navy not in terms of platforms like ships and subs, but actually getting to software supremacy. And there's some reasons for that, some real imperatives today. One is, if we look at China, they're going to be ready by President Xi is going to be ready by 2027 to invade Taiwan. We are being outproduced in building ships. We're just not bending enough metal. And so we have to think asymmetrically in how we're going to fight. And so when Admiral Franchetti is talking about how do we make sure that we have all of our ships and assets be ready and be capable and be lethal, the only way to do that in our mind is through software and AI. So if you take Admiral Franchetti's three areas of warfighting, warfighters, and foundation, in warfighting, how do we use things like computer vision to be able to detect where there might be possible threats? How do we look at optimization models and course of action models to determine what the best effector is for that particular target? How do we look at things like predictive maintenance to be able to make sure that our ships are actually ready when they need to be ready? For warfighting, a lot of it is morale. How do we use things like large language models and analytics and AI just to make the sailor's job and Marine's job easier to do so they can focus on those higher things? And then from a foundation, we need to be thinking about what Tesla did. They transformed the car company from just thinking of particular assets to a Tesla in a lot of ways software. So how do we deploy software through DevSecOps from the seafloor to space rapidly, and so we're giving the best capabilities to our ships and to our subs without having to worry about the manufacturing capacity. We're just not keeping up with China right now. So we see it as a huge moment right now within the Navy.
So you referred to, in that sail to steam model, you referred to the situation where there are some folks that just didn't want to do it.
Yes.
They were resistant to change, I think was the term that you used. Do you see that now in the environment, in the vision that you just described? And if so, how does one get around that, plan around it, strategize around it, and so on?
So there's this really interesting thing. I know, Francis, you're probably very familiar with the department's CJAT-C2 efforts, and a lot of people, that effort's been going on a long time, and that effort really is about decision advantage. How do I have the right data at the right place at the right time, so I'm able to change that OODA loop, that observe, orient, decide, and act, and the shorter and quicker that can be, the better. But why do we think now is an imperative? Why is there this sense of urgency? In a lot of ways, once we know we have to do something, America and the military are incredible at doing that. Look at COVID-19, look what we did with the Afghan NEO, look at Russia, Ukraine. But there's a major conflict going on in the Middle East. There's a major conflict going on in Europe. There is high tensions in the Indo-Pacific right now. And so when you ask what's different this time, it's that there is global crisis that we have to respond to, and we're seeing pockets of excellence now. We're seeing what General Kurilla is doing in CENTCOM. We see what General Donahue is doing with the 18th Airborne. We know this model works of having a digital workflow footprint, using AI to fight differently, and this is our time if we want to have peace and world order and have the West still be the area that we wanted to focus on in terms of world peace.
I think what's encouraging about what you described when you touched on Admiral Franchetti's warfighting piece is all of the things that you laid out there are equally effective in a deterrence world as they are in a conflict world.
Exactly. What we want to make sure that our adversaries know is that we are the most lethal force in the world, and that we have the best Navy and the Marines in the world, and we do today, and we want to continue to do that, but we don't want to just be one standard deviation better than the Chinese. We want to be 20 standard deviations better, so we never ever have to get into a fight. But if we do have to get into a fight, we want to be able to win quickly with as little loss of life on the American side as humanly possible.
I note that you haven't talked at all about the nuts and bolts of the technology, and you've talked completely about implementation and the end state that, in this case, the Navy is trying to achieve. And I imagine that's on purpose, right?
It's on purpose because a lot of this technology exists. I mean, if you think about, Francis, your daily life, you're using AI and software updates, and most of the things you operate in, whether it's your car or a plane, are using these advanced technologies on a regular basis. And so really the come to moment for us in the Navy and the Marines and the DoD is actually starting to implement this and starting to train on it. We don't want to be training on this new technology when a fight breaks out in the Indo-Pacific, as we're looking at most likely conflicts in Europe and the Middle East that are happening now. And so the time is now to adopt these technologies, so we train on these technologies, so we're ready to deter, as you mentioned earlier.
Greg, it's great to talk to you.
Great
Thanks
to talk
for your
to you
time.
too. I appreciate your time, Francis.